Well, that happened. So, it did. I am done. I'm joined by Maka.
Hello, I did that story recap for Xenoblade a year ago.
Hello, Maka. Welcome back.
Hello.
Hello. We're here to talk about the trailer that just released for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed.
Yeah.
Let's be frank here. None of us were really expecting that, to be honest.
No, I don't think anyone was. I was expecting this to come out in June, but it's now.
Yeah. I mean,
week.
let's be fair, there's also another game coming out this week, or I think this week, with Advance Wars. So,
Yeah.
sorry about everybody. Advance Wars is getting completely destroyed again because, hey, Xenoblade is getting DLC. I'm sorry,
I completely
everybody.
forgot about Advance Wars. I feel so bad for that game. It can't win.
It can't win in any given way. God, so much has happened in that trailer, and I will say two things from the get-go. One, there might be some escalations where we talk about somewhat spoilery stuff that happened in previous games in Base 3. So, you know, you're likely listening to this because you're interested, but do be aware of that a little bit, I say. And then secondly, we're likely not gonna talk much about gameplay systems because there was not much in terms of gameplay. I would say, and we talked about this before we started. The gameplay seems very similar to Base 3. Not unlike Base 3, like most of the gameplay systems and how classes are handled and how you do topple and how you do your attacks and the special moves that you do are very similar to 3, with the only exception being like the big move that two of the characters, Nicole and Glimmer, like basically do at the end, and then a big text appears on the screen. That's basically it.
Yeah, beyond that, it seems to be the same. There's not that many differences, at least from what we can tell.
No. So let's get into it. I think, first of all, what is the first impression that you got from looking at Future Redeemed?
Honestly, it was a lot of just kind of screaming. Like, lots of moments of, like, what is that? Is that who I think it is? Is this where I think it is? What is going on? What is that on her ear? What is happening? I know who this is, but I thought I did, but I don't know anymore. And it was very much just. I mean, you're feeling it. We're both just very like frazzled. Like, this came out of nowhere, and it's just shocking. All of this.
It is. It's a very different feeling from even Torna, I feel, because with Torna, we've seen Laura and the characters before a little bit. But even then, like, the way the things play out were very unique and different, where in this particular instance, like, we know roughly most of the pieces, but the pieces fit weirdly, and we don't know really where to place them.
Torna was very predictable based off of what was shown in 2. They kind of repeatedly stated what happened in the base game of 2. Whereas with this, there's a lot. I mean, there are some ideas we can glean based off of the base game, but this, based off this trailer, it seems to be completely different.
Yeah, it kind of already starts with, like, the relationship of one specific Noah's timeline, where we see him and Mia's son Matthew and the daughter Neil.
Like Neil. It's Nael apparently. So Neil.
Yeah. So we see kind of like at some point like the relationship between those two, and for some reason, and this is interesting where you can look at, Neil is not playable, and even later she goes through somewhat of a transformation with first and we get later in this character a little bit, A, having the Antos processor unit, and then we see it later on Neil, who has a somewhat transformed look. So there is a bit of a storyline throughout that trailer, but there's also, of course, the storyline with Rex and Shulk, and potentially Nicole and Glimmer, who are basically related to them.
It's looking at Glimmer, that's very clearly Rex's kid.
For sure.
And then the other side of the coin with Nicole looks very much to be Shulk's kid.
Oh yeah, and you can definitely see it with Nicole even stronger, where Nicole basically fixes up Shulk's arm.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And Glimmer, I would say Glimmer doesn't look like Pyro or Mithra. Glimmer looks more like Fiuma.
Yes.
And then the last character we kind of see in the gameplay is an interesting one, because the character's called A, and A has a specific significance, don't you think?
Yes, very much so. What is going on with A? That was one of the biggest questions from the base game. The councils, Mobius. We have one of them for every letter of the alphabet except for A. And now out of nowhere, we get this A person. So
yeah. And it's kind of the character I was referring to. Yeah, it was kind of the character I was referring to earlier, with having as her earring the Antos processor unit in her as an earring. And then we see it once again later on Neil. So there's definitely also something going on there, which we basically see bits and pieces, and we cannot really string that together all too well. But that is extremely interesting to me.
No, because the whole deal with Antos is such a... It's a question mark, and it's not within the community. It's the kind of thing where like people kind of figured based off of what was just in 2 what Antos was. And then Xenoblade DE came out and made it a lot more likely, like all but confirmed what Antos was. And then we get this, and it's like, it just kind of throws questions back in there of like, well, what's going on here? Why does she have that? Why is that just on her ear? And then why does it show up? Why does Nail get it later?
Yeah. But yeah, I would say that the styles of both, well, all of the kids, but particularly with Nicole and Glimmer are very interesting, because Glimmer, once again, has the Fiuma style, but she uses fire, and in fact she has a similar, what is it, the Aegis, or the crystal?
Yes,
Of Pyra. And then obviously with Nicole, they're basically using a mechanic arm that they build next to them instead of like a regular weapon, which I find really, really fun.
One thing I find kind of funny is Nicole's weapon reminds me a lot of like Napon, the ear wing arm things. It kind of reminds me of that.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that backpack or whatever is inspired by Napon at all, but it's reminding me of them.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, they from once again the bits and pieces I've seen, like initially it seems that Nicole and Glimmer like are fighting each other, and Matthew comes between them. Kind of similar to how the story in the beginning of Xenoblade 3 unfolds a little bit, where people come together ultimately. How they come together ultimately in this fashion is kind of hard to say.
Yeah, it seems like this incident of Glimmer and Nicole fighting, and then Matthew coming in to stop him, it seems like that's going to be this game's main inciting incident. Like, that's going to be the thing that causes all of them to, like, come together, which is very similar to the base game for 3 with Vandom.
Yes. No, 100%. But yeah, we see some interesting shots for sure where there basically is a character that's combining the flame clock machines. I forget the name. The flame clock machines into one.
Levnus, Ferronis. I don't remember which one it was. One was like one was the giant tanks. One was like the manned mech suit things. I don't remember what the names were. It's been a minute.
Yeah, the character's basically combining two of them. It's kind of nutty, and kind of insane. And then I think my biggest like two scenes are the way Neil is kind of handling like laws around them and not really sure what their place are in the world. Then we'll see the three processing units, which, you know, I'm still convinced that Otas is somehow related to Elvis, but hopefully we get a confirmation in this DLC.
One thing I noted earlier with the Trinity processors is typically whenever there is a flashback, particularly in Xenoblade 2 and 3, there's like a filter laid over the flashback. There's no filter here. So
yeah, there is no filter here. Yeah,
and it's not like they just didn't include the filter in the trailer, because there are shots in this trailer with the filter over it. So that really begs the question of, when does this scene take place?
Yeah, I haven't thought about that, but that's indeed like really strange. The thing I want to get to is like there's a shot of Colony 9, and we'll see how much that is into play really. But I find it far more interesting, and this is maybe the place where somewhat more spoilers come into the picture, and I apologize for that, but it's important to bring up.
It's gonna be a little difficult.
Yeah. We see the scene again, well, somewhat from a different angle that was in like the announcement trailer of Wave 4, where we see Shulk and Rex interacting with Elvis. The interesting part here, well, two parts. First of all, the eye of Rex is still in place and the arm of Shulk is still in place in this scene. But more so, Zed is standing next to them.
Yeah,
and if you played base 3, and hopefully to completion if you really want to know this, Zed is not a good person.
He's
Zed
really
is
not.
The antagonist.
He's really not. His placement is so interesting, because my initial thought is like, is he on Elvis's side here? And then, as you kind of pointed out more and more, it's like, I actually don't know whose side he's supposed to be on here. Like, why is he here at all?
Because my feeling on this case is that Elvis and Zed are basically at two opposite sides of the spectrum. Basically both of the extremes, right? Because Zed basically wants to create a stalemate of the world that's constantly in war, where Elvis basically wants to bring the world to zero and create it anew. And neither scenario really fits, I think, for Rex and Shulk. So I'm wondering why they are like almost in approaching reach of Zed in this particular scenario.
Maybe the whole thing is, for whatever reason, Elvis decides that he wants to recreate the world, or like he's not satisfied with the current state of the world for some reason. And that causes Shulk and Rex, I almost said Elvis, Shulk and Rex to go against him. And then because of, because of like how Zed works, he ends up maybe siding with them or something. I don't know. And then the fact that that Shulk has his arm and Rex has his eye tells me that this is very early on the DLC, if not the opening cutscene.
Yeah, I think this is basically part of the opening portion of the game, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think there's some misdirect here, because it feels like scenes are basically placed out of order in this trailer, because if we do see, for example, the council and at some point in the trailer as well, and I do think that that's a thing that becomes later in the play during the story. That's not something that follows one another.
Mm-hmm. No,
They're basically trying to seed more, like, weird placement and not knowing where you need to think necessarily to make us, like, question everything.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a clear place in all of this, and I do think that the encounter with Elvis and Zed and everything in between has a certain factor to play in the grander story here, which we're not completely seeing because of how fractured this trailer really is.
Yes. Honestly, part of me is also kind of wondering, like, kind of questioning, could these trailers also be deceptive in the sense that Elvis isn't actually a villain? Because that first teaser we got, and then this, certainly make Elvis out to be much more antagonistic. So there is a part of me that's wondering, like, is Elvis simply, is he just gonna be a villain, or is there something else going on, or is there something we're not understanding, some context or information that maybe not even Shulk or Rex have? I don't know. We know this is a prequel to 3. I think it takes place like 500 years or something before 3. I don't remember, but there's a lot of questions about how this ends up working within the context of base 3, but also, of course, just like, how does this work in the context of the grander Xenoblade series?
Is this then maybe, in Zed's case, before his ideals become basically haywired?
Maybe like it's before he like goes off the rails. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there does seem to be like a significant amount of time between them to make that a reality.
Mm-hmm. Another thing,
but it still doesn't necessarily say much, of course.
Mm-hmm. I know there's what is it? If we are right, and I'm sure we're right, Glimmer and Nicole are Rex and Shulk's kids. They have I forget what it's called. They have the timers, how many years they have left on them. So they're, a part of the armies, Agnes and Kevis. And then they will get freed from it. That makes me wonder, like, how much of a gap is there between that opening scene with Shulk, Rex, Elvis, and Zed to when they eventually all meet up later on? Like, how much of a gap is there?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's not like we have to wait months. It's only a week.
No.
But it's still just like, it's killing me to a degree.
It is. Definitely it is. It's kind of like it's rattling me inside of my brain how much there's really going on. Partially because we're recording this like 4:30 my time, but I digress.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of unexplained stuff here. And I don't think we'll necessarily get the answer before we get any closer to the game or when the game actually releases. I think this is it, and we kind of have to wait like a week before we actually get our answers.
Mm-hmm. No, it's just gonna be nothing but speculation and freaking out over everything we just saw.
Yeah, and there's likely people who are even more qualified than us who are basically completely dissecting the trailer from beginning to end. They've already figured out everything before we get to it.
Shout out to Luxon. There will be a 2-hour long analysis on this in less than 24 hours. Their
I believe
fans
it.
are obsessed.
Honestly, so, yeah.
Xenoblade fans are obsessed, and I love it.
I love it too.
Mm-hmm.
I think for now, we are going to end this off right here and now.
There's not much we can do, really. Just gotta leave it at that, I guess.
Yeah.
It's the most we can do.
I want to thank you. Yeah, I want to thank you all for listening. We very much appreciate it. And keep it locked to GameXplain for more on Xenoblade and other things gaming as well.
Bye.
Thank you very much, guys. See you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.